Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Romeo Devine Show. On this episode, I'm interviewing Mr. Matt Stack from stack.net. He's a computer specialist, and we're going to talk about what you should be doing to protect your mobile devices, your PCs, or any other electronic devices that you use. Matt, thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
It's a pleasure having you. Let's jump into this. I think the number one piece of advice we always get is antivirus protection.
Yep.
And I think it's amazing how many people depend on the software that comes on the device rather than going out and buying a third-party software program.
Okay.
What's your recommendation of the type of programs people should be using? Not necessarily by name, but just some tips on how, what should we be doing, the average user, as far as antivirus goes?
Well, the average user needs to be aware on what he or she is browsing on the internet and getting onto the computer. A lot of Google searches can end up not being a desired result for people. And that's how these viruses get infected to these users' machines, because they do random Google searches and they think they're
going to a legitimate
exactly.
website, and then you end up going to a website that has more going on than you bargained for.
Right, a mirrored site.
So let me ask you, what's your advice on how to avoid getting a device infected? Is it that third-party software that people should be buying and getting the automatic updates to? Is that what you would recommend?
That's my recommendation. Yes.
Okay, let's jump over to the other common piece of advice we get is, you need to back up your data. You need to back up your data. And my personal experience has been that can be tricky, and it can also get complicated.
Right.
For the average user, how do we simplify that process?
Well, first of all, you need to know or decide what you need to back up and what's important to you. Now, something that's important to me may differ from you,
Sure.
so on and so forth. But as first you need to establish that, and it could be a long, drawn-out process if you're not prepared.
Yeah. So, do you recommend, again, third-party software packages where you click on an icon, it does those automatic backups for you to a certain part of a hard drive or maybe an external hard drive?
You can, for the novice type user, that's certainly easier. You can back up your whole hard drive if you desire to. Yeah, one-click simplat. One-click ease of access. That's fine.
Sure.
Yes.
But also, too, I always say, from my own personal experience is that, I would say back up the files you want.
That's right.
Like, your pictures, your files, your working papers, your music, any work product materials you have or personal projects you're working on, rather than all the background stuff, because that literally can take hours sometimes, depending on how much data you have.
That can take hours. That can also take valuable space on the drive that you back up to.
Let's also talk about one thing that has been in the news so much lately. It's people's cloud accounts getting hacked. And we both have this smirk on our face because we know when people hear cloud, they automatically assume pictures, dirty pictures. And movie stars having these accounts hacked and having, pictures taken in the privacy of their own home that were exchanged possibly with someone they happen to be in a relationship with at the time. As a lot of people do, it's just they're famous, and so there's more publicity behind it. So someone like yourself who is a computer specialist, what's your advice? As far as the cloud services and the protections that one could maybe implement to prevent themselves from being in the same situations as some of these movie stars have been in lately in the media?
Well, I'll tell you. And this is what I I give this advice to people and they don't want to do this. The only way that you, for example, on a related note, if you do not want to get viruses onto the machine, or you do not want to get your machine infected, don't go on the internet. Well, nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's a risk. If you don't want your files, your possessions, because all of our files are possessions. They are valuable to us, and we miss them deeply, and it's also a financial loss. But if you don't want your files in the wrong hands, don't put them on cloud. Cloud's a
They have vulnerabilities.
yes, cloud's convenient right now, but it's still being that idea is still being pursued. Not everything has been worked out yet.
It's still being refined.
Yes, exactly.
I think what I take away from it is that there is some utility in the cloud, but there's still some refining of the cloud concept that probably needs to happen to where everybody has more of a comfort level as far as the security.
Oh,
is that
sure.
basically?
I would agree with that.
So what's the alternative to the cloud? Is it maybe an external hard drive that you sort of secure on your own?
That is one possibility. What I have a partnership with a hard drive manufacturer. It's an external hard drive that you keep in your home. It's a black box, and it is fireproof and waterproof. So the only thing that you're out of if a disaster strikes in your home is the shell of that device. But the hard drives are intact and readable.
And I mean, that's a good point that you make, because more and more it's not so much people's possessions now, it's their data.
Yes, that's right.
Because we don't tend to keep photo albums anymore, or CD collections, or music collections. That is stored in some type of electronic format, which obviously lends to portability and flexibility and sharing data with people.